We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. A playground for some. For others, it's where they make their living. But the sea's unpredictable.
Things can go wrong in seconds.
When you're out in the boat, every minute counts.
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of over 5,000 ordinary people, ready to leave their jobs, their families, and race to our rescue.
When the pager goes off, your body's full of adrenaline.
Okay guys, go, go, go.
There's potentially a family out there with somebody missing.
If it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't be here today.
We'll get you out of here.
They definitely saved my life.
Yep.
Equipped with their own cameras, the crews give us a unique insight into every call-out.
Hey, grab a hand.
As only they see it.
You're doing really, really well, buddy. Guys, we need to get him in. Get him in, get him in.
For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
To know that you've helped save a life.
Let's get you in.
It's such an awesome feeling.
Hold on!
On the southeastern tip of England is the headland and fishing town of Dungeness.
Dungeness is a strange place. Anyone that comes here will say so. It's a shingle peninsula that points out into the English Channel.
We've got the Dungeness power station, which a lot of people are really intrigued by, and plenty of nature to see.
In certain weather conditions, it can be quite harsh, but on good summers, the beaches can be absolutely ram-packed.
It's a bit like Marmite, I suppose. You either love it or hate it.
There's been a lifeboat here since 1826, the current vessel being a Shannon-class or weatherboat. It launches directly from the shingle beach using a purpose-built tractor system.
The position of Dungeness means that we are quite close to the shipping lanes of the English Channel, which is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world.
We're just over 26 miles to France.
Being situated where we are, we do get quite a range of different jobs, sort of lots of pleasure craft and obviously small boat crossings as well.
We then go out and do the humane thing and we remove them from the danger that they've found themselves in within the channel.
We always treat everyone with respect and dignity. We do rescue everyone. We are there to save lives at sea.
Early June, a sunny and warm summer's evening.
When the pager went off that day, it was about 6:30 in the evening.
We were told that there was a report from 2 ships. There was a dinghy in the shipping lanes.
The dinghy itself looked as though it may have had 2 or 3 people on board. They didn't look like they had safe equipment, weren't appropriately dressed.
It's quite in line with a typical small boat crossing in the channel. So straight away, assumptions were made that potentially that's what we're going to.
The crew deploy their launch and recovery system to transport their all-weather boat across the shingle and down to the water's edge as quickly as possible.
That shipping lane is extremely busy. There are huge ships that can't stop and may not be able to see that vessel, and we need to get there quickly.
The weather conditions were quite bright and sunny. Typically, small boat crossings is middle of the night, so it was starting to flag up as something slightly different to what maybe we had sort of initially presumed.
It takes the crew 15 minutes to cover the 4 miles out to sea, where they immediately spot a tiny inflatable dinghy by a large container vessel on the edge of the shipping lanes.
As we got closer, we could actually see the casualty vessel, which stood out like a sore thumb. Bright blue, white sides, so we was able to locate it quite quickly.
But as the crew draw nearer, they spot something unusual.
This was a dinghy that was full of bags and just one person.
He was laying on his back and he had a cycle helmet on, which was quite bizarre. And in his hands, he was holding a tiny sail and leaning back and trying to catch the wind, which was something I'd never seen before.
Work that one out.
That's his means of propulsion.
The fact that he didn't have any paddles and he didn't have an engine didn't really fit with a small boat crossing. So straight away it was a bit of a head scratcher.
When we tried to talk to him, he started to explain that he didn't want any help.
You're in danger right now. It's okay. In our opinion, you're in danger.
But obviously we were very concerned at that point that he was in a very vulnerable position.
Everything you got in there?
The amount of equipment and belongings that he had on board, it was considerably overloaded.
He looks very relaxed.
So the concern is he going to get swamped, flipped over, and sort of end up in the water himself?
We can't leave him there.
Jason was talking to him and trying to be as kind as possible, really.
Do you want to come and have a cup of tea? You won't go nowhere. Just come and have a cup of tea.
It was a different response to what we're normally expecting. Most casualties are very pleased to see us.
I don't have visa for that. Oh, don't worry about that.
He was quite adamant that he didn't have a visa and he was worried that he was going to be deported and sent back. And that's why he insisted that he didn't want to get on the boat.
As well as being adamant that he doesn't want to get on the lifeboat. Unlike every other small boat crossing the crew have attended, the casualty doesn't want to get to England either.
I want to go to France.
Obviously, we're typically dealing with taskings with small boats that are generally coming the other direction. It didn't add up.
I'm France for asylum. You're going to France for asylum? Yeah. All right.
At that point, he's refusing to come on board, and we at that point cannot actually leave the scene.
So that was a first for me. Majority of people do want to be rescued, so to be faced with someone that doesn't was a bit of a curveball.
With the casualty refusing help but still at risk of either capsizing or drifting further into the busy shipping lanes, the crew have no choice but to try and change his mind.
We've come to help you, so obviously we're a bit concerned. Do you want to come aboard our boat and we take you back to safety? Where?
England!
It's me to England, but we're helping out, mate. We get all the relevant people to help you out. No.
To try and persuade somebody to come on a lifeboat when they don't want to, it's not an easy task. Certainly the best thing we feel and the right thing to do is just treat them as human beings. We don't know why he's ended up in that situation.
Jason continues to try and negotiate with the casualty. But just as he seems to be coming round, something else upsets him.
Hey?
As Jason was negotiating with the casualty, I was wearing the head cam.
He saw the red light flashing, and it seemed to trigger him a little bit.
Go on, down the wheel, that's Craig.
Okay. To put the casualty more at ease, the decision is taken to remove the cameras from the situation.
Getting jittery about the camera. Doesn't want the camera, he knows it's a camera.
We don't know the type of person we're dealing with, and the last thing we would want to do is put them in danger by stressing them out. It's really important in cases like this that we just remain calm, and it takes as long as it takes at the end of the day. But what finally convinced the casualty to come aboard was we was giving him straight facts about the weather, the course that he was drifting.
Concerned about the worsening weather and the fact that the sun is starting to set, the casualty finally agrees to come on board and the lifeboat begins heading back to Dungeness.
I stayed and talked to him for a little while, trying to ask him a few questions, how he was. I just thought, poor chap, he's obviously in a bad way.
And we asked him, what is your name? He told us, to which we relayed that back to the lifeboat station.
At that point, we had no idea what he'd done.
The crew settle in for a steady journey home, little realizing that the man they have just rescued is the subject of a major manhunt.
A 15-year-old has died and his mother is seriously injured after a stabbing at a house in Manchester. Police are hunting for a man in connection with the incident. Our reporter Eunice Muller has spent the day at the scene and Eunice, bring us up to date.
There is a manhunt underway. Detectives say they're looking for an Asian man in his mid-40s, a medium build.
What I'm told by Great Manchester Police is they're actively seeking him, and they have quite rightly said do not approach this individual, phone 999 and contact the police if you know of his whereabouts.
Although the suspect is not named, the description of the person the police are looking for matches the man now sitting in the wheelhouse of the Dungeness lifeboat.
We had absolutely no idea who this man was. All we knew was that we've got a guy in his 40s, Asian, leaving the UK.
When Jason was talking to the casualty, he found out his name was Solomon.
Back at the station, Sarah and the rest of the shore crew pass the casualty's name and description onto the Coast Guard, who share it with the police, where the detective leading the manhunt picks it up.
I was a senior investigating officer. We knew that we were looking for a male called Solomon Altaf. We were able to identify a telephone number very quickly for Altaf, and we were able to identify that telephone was then travelling towards the south coast. At that point, the concerns were, actually, is this male now trying to leave the country? At which point, then, we have to liaise with ports and borders.
As the boat was coming back with the man on board, I received a phone call at the station from the police. They were asking a lot of questions, the man's name, age. Once we were under the understanding that this man could potentially be dangerous, my concerns were the safety of the crew.
Though Sarah and the shore crew are now aware of the situation, and that the police are inbound, there's no way they can warn the lifeboat crew without also potentially tipping off the suspect.
We got back to station, disembarked from the boat. It was a straightforward, make the guy maybe a cup of tea if he wants one, and see if we can just warm him up a bit.
He seemed very stressed at this point, and he had become quite sweaty as well, like he was starting to sort of panic, and maybe like at the look of worry across his face as such.
Inside the station, Jason and Mark continue to talk to the casualty, utterly oblivious to what is now happening outside.
A lot of big cars arrived very quickly, and within a matter of a few minutes, there were about 10 to 15 officers with shields and guns.
What's this one?
They were quite strategic in that they were able to do it without the man knowing that they were there.
We didn't know what his mental health state was. He certainly was a dangerous man, and that's why we needed to apprehend him.
We weren't actually aware, sitting in the crew room, Jason, myself and the casualty, that the police were actually physically at the station.
The armed police response team prepare to arrest the suspect. But before they can move in, they need to get Jason and Mark out of the way without alerting him.
One of the Coast Guard operatives came in and asked me if I would go outside with him and help him clean our boat down. Coast Guard don't clean RNLI lifeboats. I looked at Jason, we looked at each other, almost a gormless gaze at each other as to what's this all about.
Obviously, I was sat with a casualty that sort of needed assistance and a bit of reassurance. So for the crew to ask me to come and take part in washing down, with nobody else left with him, was quite bizarre. So I got up out my chair, said to the casualty, I'll be back in a minute. I walked to the door with a glass panel on it, and I could see a whole line of armed police officers holding rifles.
The moment Jason and Mark step out of the room, the police make their move.
Go on, mate. Solomon, put your hands up. Show me your hands. Okay. Put your hands on your head.
Don't make these sudden movements, all right?
Hands on your head. Okay.
Hands on your head. All right, mate, you're under arrest for murder and attempt murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, all right?
Subject secure.
Now under arrest for murder, Solomon Altaf is led away in handcuffs and taken into custody.
Right, walk forward for me.
Once I'd learnt that he was suspected of murder, you're able to start to make sense on how he was behaving.
What? Let's go.
I actually thought, wow, I've actually stood next to this guy and patted him on the arm and tried to reassure him and, you know, help him. And then you actually feel quite angry at what he's done.
I think the RNLI are amazing anyway for what they do every single day. But again, on this occasion, we just couldn't have done it without their help.
Next thing now.
To bring someone to justice and be part of that mechanism, we had the police, we had the Coast Guard, we had the RNLI, all working together. And I think the outcome was, you know, what we all would have wanted.
We just do what we always do, and that's treat everyone with a bit of respect, remain calm, and get the job done.
Of the 9,000 shouts the lifeboat crews respond to each year, the vast majority start, as most emergencies do, with a 999 call.
Rescue. I'm really struggling here. I'm drowning. The RNLI is classed as an emergency service.
We are on call as anyone else is, 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day.
The boat is on its way. Don't panic.
I'm here, Polly, okay?
Don't worry.
To be in the police, the ambulance service, Coast Guard, RNLI, you have to want to help people.
We'll get you out of here.
Commonalities between the RNLI and the other emergency services are we all train very hard. We're all there to make a crucial difference in the moment when it really matters.
Okay, go!
Thank you.
It's quite a big responsibility being the receiving end of a 999, but our main goal is just to make sure that they're safe.
Stop clear! Okay, we're clear!
Every one of us cares.
All right, sweetheart.
Every one of us wants the best outcome for those who need our help.
Take care of yourself. Let us know how you get on, all right?
Our key aim is to save lives at sea. That's why the RNLI is our fourth emergency service.
On the southeastern tip of England, on the Kent coast, is the historic town of Walmer.
Walmer is between Dover and Ramsgate. We are historically a military town.
It's a very quiet, lovely seaside town. In the winter, you get the locals and everyone knows everyone, it's that small. In the summer, we have lots of tourists and that's when our pages are more alive.
Keeping watch over the surprisingly dangerous local waters is the Walmer lifeboat station.
The lifeboat station is literally on the beach. We have to cross a pedestrian pathway to get from the hard standing onto the beach, but it's about as close to the water as you can get.
Our local area is a long shingle beach, stretches for miles. A few miles around the coast, you've got the cliffs of Dover. We have Goodwin Sands nearby, which is a big sandbank which can, at low tide, dry above the waterline.
Stretching for 10 miles, the Goodwin Sands lie 6 miles off the coast and are infamous among seafarers.
Acres of sand, once fertile pasture land, now and for centuries past a death trap.
200 or 300 years ago, the Goodwin Sands would have been probably its most dangerous. That's why it's a graveyard to hundreds of ships and thousands of sailors. And many of those wrecks you can still see when you go out there.
Lifeboat crews know the treachery of the Goodwins by night and in fog.
At low water, it becomes a navigational issue. And at other times, it's just under the water when you can't see it, and you can hold your boat on that if you're not careful.
From the air, we see the latest victims. On the sands, a merchantman lies stricken and abandoned. Goodwins, graveyard of the sea.
A lightship used to sit at anchor here to warn off other vessels. But in 1954, that too became a victim of the sands.
The Goodwin Sands, graveyard of so many ships, claims another victim.
the South Goodwin lightship. Caught on the treacherous sandbank she was guarding, the ship was overturned by pounding seas and gale-force winds. 1 man was saved, but the other 7 aboard perished in the storm.
Around 2,000 ships over the years have been wrecked on the Goodwin Sands, and in terms of the number of souls lost, you've got to be into the thousands.
With so many wrecks littering the seabed here, the area has become a star attraction for divers.
Diving's incredibly popular in this area. You'll find a lot of people head out towards the Goodwin Sands to dive. People do it just for interest or historical research. It's literally one of the most dangerous things a person can do, and I've got a lot of respect for people that do it, but absolutely not something that I would get into. The only thing that would motivate me was the idea that there was gold bars in some of these wrecks, and then I might consider it.
Early September, a still and overcast Monday afternoon. The pager sounds for an immediate launch.
An immediate launch, there's no higher state of urgency.
Initial information we had was just 2 missing divers off the South Goodwin buoy. All we'd known, they were missing for an hour. They could have been anywhere. Depending on the strength of the tide, they could have drifted over a mile.
So let's get briefed and let's get moving as quick as we can.
With the 2 missing divers 6 miles offshore, getting to them quickly could mean the difference between life and death. So the warmer crew launched the faster of their 2 boats, the B-class Atlantic 85.
We launched within about 12 minutes.
My concerns at that point, were they going to be easy to find? Would they have hypothermia, being in the water so long?
Finding people in the water is incredibly difficult. And if they're not wearing a life jacket or something high-vis, it's even harder.
As the crew speed to location, they radio ashore and are informed that both the Coast Guard helicopter and the Dover lifeboat have also been launched and are inbound.
163, this is the Coast Guard. That's all coming there.
Okay. Can you do us a pickup? I can see them straight over there.
I was asking the Coast Guard if we had any updates or first informants, and they said the boat was still on scene where the divers were missing from.
Got an update that the dive boat had broken down, and that called in the missing divers, and that they'd been in the water for about an hour.
20 minutes after launching, the crew spot the broken down dive boat on the horizon and head towards it to get an update on the missing divers.
As we approached the dive boat, the skipper was pointing quite emotionally to keep going. At that point, 1638, the Coast Guard helicopter flew over and said, we got eyes on, follow us.
They can see so much more than we can because they're so much higher up. When they see somebody, can either hover or call over the radio. So they called over the radio that they spotted them and for us to follow. So that's why we chased them.
I can see them straight over there. Straight over there. Okay, that's it. Okay, fab. Get ready to get an arm on them. I've lost their heads in the water.
Trying to look for people in the water is a very difficult task. If you've got swells, if you've got white horses, you're looking for a needle in a haystack.
Over here. All right, just be very gentle.
163, this is the Coast Guard.
They're hovering over the location. Port side, very, very gentle approach.
They've got these big inflatable devices to help us lock onto them.
Try and come round as much as you can to get them.
But in fact, still, I don't know, 200 yards away, you couldn't see them 50, 60% of the time because how the swells were running. So it made the approach very, very difficult.
Over here. Here you go. Throw line if you need.
You are relieved the moment that you can see them, but that unlocks the next chapter, which is, are they okay?
Okay, grab a hand. How you doing? Right. Okay, bring them back down this way. That's it. Hold on to it. Hold on.
So step 1 was done. However, the task definitely wasn't over. We knew that they got a lot of kit and they could be quite ill. So our main priority was to get them on board as quickly as we could.
Are you okay? You okay? Are you all right? Okay.
James, Vic and Babs grabbed them, and then we suddenly realised how heavy they were.
Got the weight belt on. Okay, we'll have to see how we get on with that. Take some kit off.
The divers had 3 gas cylinders, weighted belts, harnesses, crowbars, axes.
Let's get the air off this gentleman first, and then we'll get him in. There we go. Are you free of this now if I lift it in? Or try to? You float her off, yeah. Okay.
We've managed to get both of them their gas cylinders off.
Can I have a hand with this? I've got the divers, don't worry. Okay. Okay. That's it, you got it. Okay. That's it. Okay.
With both divers stripped to their bare essentials, the crew prepare to haul them into the lifeboat.
Once we started bringing them on the boat, you could tell they were exhausted. They had no fight left.
Everyone get an arm then?
Right, guys, you're going to have to help us here.
1, 2,
Let yourself down.
3, and go.
We had to really heave them in.
Bit of help, Babs. In the sun, there you go. Well done. Got it. Very good.
You alright? Yeah,
That's it, just stay there for a sec.
So once we got the divers on the boat, our helm was quite concerned that they could go into shock or post-rescue collapse. So he decided to keep them on our boat, and we'll make best speed to get them to the Coast Guard ground team.
The warmer lifeboat rushes the 2 divers, Ian and Steve, back to nearby Dover lifeboat station. Monitoring them the whole way after their near-death encounter with the notorious Goodwin Sands.
I've been diving nearly 40 years. I've dived many places, Mediterranean, the Caribbean, Mexico, but out of everywhere I dive, the place I enjoy diving the most is Dover. I've had to push the fish aside. I've sat on the end of a wreck, and the vista of fish passing by is magnificent. That's Dover. In amongst it, there might be a gold bar or 2. No 2 dives are ever the same.
The plan that day was for Ian and Steve to dive a 100-year-old wreck called the Queen, just off the Goodwin Sands.
I've dived the Queen many times, but this particular day was probably the clearest I've ever seen it. For things to go wrong, it was a shame.
Me and Steve jump in, we descend the shot line to the wreck.
A shot line is just an anchor line, and it's got 3 or 4 buoys on the ends.
Ian and Steve swam down to the wreck, using the shot line to guide them, then began their individual dives.
We had a lovely dive. The visibility was good. I had a good rummage around, and I come back and met Steve, but the shot's not there. The shot's disappeared.
As the shot line must have snapped or worked loose during their dive, it left them with nothing to hold on to during their ascent, and no way for the dive boat to know their exact location.
We've deployed a delayed SMB to the surface, so it marked where we were.
An SMB, or surface marker buoy, not only shows the dive boat their location, it also has a guide rope to help them back up.
Once I got on the surface, Ian said there's no boat, and I looked around, could not see the boat anywhere.
It took a little while to work out where the boat was.
That's the boat, it's drifted off.
I estimate the boat was over a mile away, which is very unusual. And again, that rung alarm bells that the distance between us and the boat was completely wrong.
He must know, because he's well down off still.
I was quite relaxed initially, and then time went on.
We was calling, we was shouting, we was blowing our whistles.
Unbeknown to Ian and Steve, their friend Colin, the boat's skipper, could hear them, but was unable to respond to their calls for help.
The engine had broken down. I tried to fix the engine and that wasn't being fixed. I could still hear them calling and I couldn't pick them up. I was quite helpless then, there was nothing I could do. It's the last thing you want as a helm really, is not to be able to pick up your divers, especially when they're your friends. That was a concern.
I've never shouted so much in my life. I started to get a little bit anxious and started getting a bit tense across my chest.
Having suffered a heart attack during a dive a few years earlier, Steve did his best to remain calm.
I don't want to obviously have a heart attack again, so I've sort of taught myself to relax whenever I get tense, any situation.
You all right? I'm aware that he had the heart attack, so that's always in the back of my mind that Steve needs looking after, so we do our best to look after him.
I was looking for the marker buoys to see where they would be or to see them on the surface. I couldn't see anything at the time.
What happened to the ship?
I don't know. Having two divers missing is not a good feeling. Steve did concern me because he had medical problems and I really wanted to actually act before this situation got any worse, so I put in a mayday to the Coast Guard.
We're helpless at that point. There's little else we can do. We've just got to wait. And then all of a sudden a helicopter appeared immediately above and the sound was deafening, but we knew what it was. And almost instantly I could see the warmer lifeboat coming towards us. That's a good feeling. The stress of the situation just lifts instantly. You're now in the hands of others. We knew our ordeal was over.
At Dover Lifeboat Station, Ian and Steve were given hot tea and warm blankets, and then released later that evening.
Ultimately, we found them as a team with the other assets. We found them very quickly. We extracted them very quickly. You can't really hope for a better outcome than that.
The resource put into rescuing us is quite humbling.
I joined the crew to help people and save lives. This job was saving 2 people's lives.
Would I be here now if it weren't for them? You know, it's a possibility I wouldn't be.
In South Wales, looking out onto the Bristol Channel, is the industrial harbour town of Port Talbot.
Port Talbot is kind of mainly famous for its industrial background.
When you look at the horizon, you can see sort of Baggle Mountain and things like that behind, but right at the front of it, sitting over the Talbot, is the steelworks.
Originally constructed in the early 1900s, Britain's largest steelworks employs over 4,000 people and produces around 5 million tonnes of steel every year.
People always whinge about the steelworks and saying it's kind of dirty and it's not a clean place, but then we just want a blue flag to say that we've got one of the cleanest beaches in South Wales. It's about 1.5 miles long. When the tide's out, we've got about 800 metres of clean beach, nice clean seas.
It really is a nice town. People are very friendly. Everyone seems to know each other. If you haven't heard a rumour by 2 o'clock in Port Talbot, you've got to start one. It's that kind of town.
Sitting towards the southern end of the beach, as it has done since 1966, is the Port Talbot Lifeboat Station.
Everyone knows where we are. It's a very clear landmark on the beachfront, right by our big slipway.
We have a D-class lifeboat. The workhorse of the RNLI, as we like to tell everybody with big boats. It's probably the best boat for what we have. We have a surf beach, so launching through surf in a small boat is a lot easier than it would be with a bigger boat.
It's fast and manoeuvrable. It's fantastic in big swell, as well as around our piers. We can get in nice and close to the piers and up against rocks as well.
Typical shouts around Talbot are swimmers, paddleboarders, people falling off fishing boats. That happens.
Really, the biggest danger that we have on our coast is people who are sort of unaware of how to use and be safe on the water.
Early August, late afternoon. A call comes in from a security guard who thinks he spotted somebody entering the water by the steelworks, a mile south of the lifeboat station.
Somebody in the water is the most urgent call we can go to.
It just kind of heightens everything. It just kind of makes everything go a lot quicker.
Cold water shock can, set in really quite quickly. So these jobs are of the highest urgency.
We had a fatality a month before. We didn't want to repeat that. It's still pretty fresh in everybody's minds, but you can't think about it too much. You just got to get going.
Yeah, mate.
The crew prepare for an immediate launch, aware that the tide is rising and that both time and the heavy surf are against them.
It was a very windy day, and I'm looking at that swell coming in, and it was tasty.
We not only had big surf, but we had some dumping waves. We were getting swamped.
It was kind of head first, swan dive into the boat. Go! When we go quick. And once obviously we break through the waves, it's head on task.
As soon as the crew are on the water, they contact the Coast Guard for an update on the casualty's location.
ILB, this is opening the Coast Guard reports of a male in the water. Security are the first informers.
The Steelworks Deepwater Harbour is where they bring in the iron ore for steel making, and it comes in on large container ships. It's a very busy working dock. There's a lot of debris in the water. It can be a very challenging area to be in.
This person that was seen and tracked on camera, a member of the security was here, someone had eyes on this person. The person entered the water, they lost sight of this person, and nobody had seen them coming out.
Knowing that the tide is rising and time is going by, it does kind of weigh on your mind. That was the first shout we had had since having a person in the water that didn't end well. You almost want to kind of be quicker because something didn't go right last time.
They have been trying to evade the security.
We have an area where it does get filled very quickly with water. We know if someone's in there and they're trapped and the tide's coming in, we know we can't get to them. And the likelihood of finding them in the dark, murky water just decreases tenfold.
The crew reach the Deepwater Harbour and immediately begin the search of its 3,000 acres.
When we're looking along the Deepwater Harbour, there's a large area to cover.
Right, we're gonna dead 3 sweeps to this arm.
There were so many different places that an individual could be stuck or trapped.
You do rocks underwater. Yeah?
Yeah. You're looking for a small head and that's it. We're looking in between each rock, in each crevice.
You search in one area, then you move on to the next area, and you're just marking it off as you go along.
I'm just wondering if we could get a CRO up onto the long arm for a little look around there. Over.
I've got 2 CROs just entering the area to start looking.
The CROs, or Coast Guard rescue officers, search the shore in parallel with the lifeboat, looking for any sign of the casualty.
While we are doing our shoreline searches, there are Coast Guard rescue teams searching the ponds.
Yeah.
From the ladder.
Yeah. There's a rock or something.
There's barrels and all sorts of stuff.
Nothing around here, is there?
The crew carry out a swift initial sweep of the harbour.
After our first search, It was evident that there was nobody obvious in the water. We then had to go into a more extensive search.
Could you possibly search over the opposite side of the harbour, over by the vessel, over?
Oh, roger that, we'll make our way over to that side.
We started doing a search along the jetty. The jetty within the Deepwater Harbour carries the 3 cranes. And these things are huge. And then you were under there with a small D-class.
Don't look up.
I said a grab onto it there. We didn't miss a stanchion. We didn't miss a stairway. We didn't miss a ladder.
By the time the lifeboat crew and shore team have thoroughly searched every foot of the harbour, almost an hour has passed. With still no sign of the casualty, they radio the Coast Guard for an update.
This is Milford. The latest call, we talked with one of the security men. There was a possibility that this was person was wearing waders. If they were waders, and if they have filled up, they may have gone under.
Waders is a bit of a game changer for us. We are then potentially looking for somebody who's under the water rather than swimming on top of the water.
It definitely brought that sense of urgency on board.
Because of the time we've been on the water, you're then more worried about the outcome.
At that point is when it came into my head, well, if this person is wearing waders, this is a body recovery. This isn't going to be a good outcome, potentially.
Would the advantage for a helo be any good to you?
With the realisation that time may have already run out, the decision is made to scramble the Coast Guard helicopter to help them complete the search.
The rescue helicopter would allow us to cover a vast area much more quickly.
The thing is, you got a height advantage of it.
And they have the use of their thermal imagery can allow them to pick up sort of small heat changes within the water. It definitely helps us.
Knowing that a helicopter's there just gives you a stronger belief that they will find something if it's there.
The search extends into a second hour, with the crew retracing their steps and scouring the harbour once again for any sign of the missing person.
When you're searching for so long, it does take its toll on your body, it does take its toll on your mind.
Is that trees or someone kneeling down with a black cap on?
Nah, trees.
When he's playing tricks on me.
Yeah, that's trees. It really does drain you. We're looking at the same thing over and over again. Yeah, so we're basically looking if this is a...
You will see things that look like a human form, which is nowhere near.
What's what?
See? There you go.
We want to find a casualty. We want to make sure that whoever's there is found safe well. But things play with your mind where you'll see a barrel 3 times on the shore, and every time it seems to be a different kind of shape.
Your effectiveness definitely drops. Your adrenaline level's gone, and if you're not 100% effective, then you do need to think about getting off that boat to let somebody else on and let them carry on a search.
An hour and 45 minutes after they launched, the crew returned to shore to refuel and hand over to a fresh crew.
Coming back empty-handed from a shout, it's not a good feeling. There's no closure on it.
The self-doubt creeps in. Did I check everything? Did I do everything I possibly can? Did I search everywhere I possibly could?
There's potentially a family out there with somebody missing tonight.
The second crew carry on for a further 2 hours before the search is finally called off, almost 4 hours after it started. An unsatisfactory end to a shout that still remains a mystery.
No one's ever been found. There's been no reports of a missing person that would match the description, so it's still open.
There's still a mystery to us this day. Hopefully there was nothing there. Maybe someone in the steelworks just had a very hot day, had a quick swim in the harbour, realised he was in trouble, and he's run home and he's had a shower and change, and he's not going to breathe another word about it.
After a job like that, you always wonder, have we done everything we possibly could have done? And it sits with you for a bit, and you realise then that we train, and all of that training did come into work, and we did do the best job we could at the time.
"300 miles north, standing on the banks of the Firth of Forth, lies the town of Kinghorn.
Kinghorn is a little village, and it's got like a butcher's and a baker's and a co-op, and everybody knows everybody, for better or for worse. So, yeah. I've always lived in Kinghorn. I'm born and bred in Kinghorn, and I always saw the boat going out, come back in, thought that looks really fun. That looks like something I'd want to do.
The lifeboat, established back in 1965, is as much a part of this tight-knit community as the river it patrols.
We cover two coastlines, so we've got the Fife coastline, so the north side we cover, and then across on the south side we cover from Aberlady Bay going west as far as the west side of Edinburgh.
Also on Kinghorn's patch is Inchkeith Island, a desolate and eerie place littered with abandoned buildings from its long and checkered past. It has been everything from a strategic radio site and gun emplacement in the war to a former place of quarantine for both syphilis and plague sufferers.
It's quite spooky. Yeah, given the history to it. It's only inhabited by seals now, and it's not the nicest of places to be. It's quite unpleasant.
Late August, dead of night.
It was 2:30 in the morning. I was in bed. Pager went off.
When the pager goes off, if it's in the middle of the night, you're instantly wide awake. It's effectively just a case of running down to the station, find out what the job is.
A call has come in from the Coast Guard about a yachtsman in trouble close by Inchkeith Island.
The first information we heard was quite vague, if I remember rightly. It was just an injured sailor at Inchkeith.
The average launch time here is 7 minutes. And even though tonight the crew were asleep when the pagers sounded,
go, go, go,
they are on the water in less than 15.
Going out that night, it was very dark. It was inky black. There was no light from the moon. It was just cloud cover. You could hardly see really very much in front of you at all.
The crew speed across the pitch-black waters of the estuary, covering the 2.5 miles to Inchkeith Island in less than 5 minutes.
Did you get the wee first aid kit out for us? We knew exactly where it was, and Inchkeith not being a big island, we kind of went straight out, and sure enough, here's this yacht sitting there.
We thought that must be him, because there's nobody else really sort of in this area. At that point, you couldn't see anybody. There was nobody evident on board.
When we got no answer at first, I suppose I did have maybe a thought in the back of my mind that he's maybe unconscious.
And at that point, you're like, oh no, what's happened here? Why is he not responding? You just begin to wonder, has it been a more serious injury than was first passed on? Has something happened to him since then? And also a bit of, I don't really want to get on that boat if nobody's responding.
The crew move closer in the dark, watching and listening for any sign of life. Then just as they pull alongside, someone appears from below deck.
Came stumbling out from the wheelhouse. I think he'd been lying down, and then he'd managed to eventually kind of haul himself up and get out to sea us. So you just saw like a black kind of shape emerging at that point.
The crew pull alongside and board the yacht to properly assess the casualty.
Upfield.
Oh dear, what happened?
Stepped on the board and slipped. My whole weight was in my ribs at the back. Certain ways I move, it's really extremely painful.
He was clearly in a lot of pain, struggling to kind of breathe. I cracked my ribs playing rugby years ago, and it's probably one of the sorest things I've done. So being on a yacht bouncing about, it'll be probably quite excruciating pain.
Is it isolated pain? Is it only there that only that you've not hurt yourself anywhere?
See where my thumb is here?
Yep.
That's
My biggest concern for him was his welfare. First and foremost, it has to be.
No other major health, no asthma, no breathing difficulties, history of heart pain, anything like that? No, okay.
With the casualty in pain but not in acute medical distress, the crew turned their attention to his vessel.
He explained that his anchor was dragging, so he tried to raise it in an effort to move his boat. However, in doing so, he had fallen.
Seems to have dragged the anchor in.
Oh, really?
Aye.
Right, okay.
the anchor just wasn't holding, so it was dragging on the seabed, basically, which means that the vessel was moving as well.
The yacht is being dragged by the current towards the dark, looming shape of Inchkeith Island. The crew need to come up with a plan to quickly and safely extract the casualty.
We've got him injured, but we've also got a boat that's dragging its anchor, getting blown towards an island with a lot of rocks around it.
Ordinarily, the crew would attach a line and tow the yacht to shore with the casualty still on board. But with a broken rib and choppy seas, that would be a slow and agonising journey.
Would you be happy if we put the yacht alongside in at Inchkeith just now?
With Inchkeith Island the closest point of land, the crew decide to head into the shelter of its deserted harbour in order to transfer the casualty to the lifeboat.
You ready?
We towed him into the harbour in Inchkeith.
You got about 5 metres?
It's not the nicest of places to be, sitting on a night like that. It was quite unpleasant.
What's there after the boat?
There's a lot of barnacles on, metal rods that stick out in some places which can put a hole in the hull. You just have to be wary when going in there.
What's your name?
Got him moored alongside the pier that's there, tied his boat up, at which point we were able to transfer him onto the lifeboat.
Just put one leg on the outside and one leg on the inside.
Once the casualty is safely aboard the lifeboat and his yacht securely tied to the pier, they head away from Inchkeith Island and make their steady way home.
We didn't go full speed back, rather go a bit slower to try and make it a bit more comfortable for him.
They arrive back at Kinghorn 10 minutes later, where a team of paramedics are waiting to take over.
There's an ambulance here for you. Right.
He was very relieved to be back on dry land, yeah, very, very, very thankful he was. Couldn't thank us enough for what we'd done, really.
I couldn't breathe it. No, I thought I was going to die, suffocate.
Andy had spent the day sailing and fishing, ending up at Inchkeith Island, where he anchored up to do a spot of night fishing before he noticed the island appeared to be getting closer.
All of a sudden, I seen the jetty getting closer. It wasn't the jetty was moving, it was me. So anyway, I said I'll pull the anchor up and I could maybe nip in behind the jetty, like. I didn't get that far. I slipped on the bollard and I went up in the air and bang. Landed right on top of the bollard with my side here. I could hardly breathe. I was gasping for breath, actually, lying in the day. I thought I'd broke my back, actually. So I thought I'd better phone the RNLI and get them out to me.
Andy was taken to Victoria Hospital in Kirkcaldy to have his injuries assessed and treated.
Anyway, they x-rayed it and the doctor said, you're severely bruised. There are no broke or splinters, so you're all right that way, he said.
If he hadn't contacted the Coast Guard, it could have been a very, very serious situation. He would have been blown onto the rocks, and I think he would have ended up in the water and, yeah, potentially never be found.
Oh, I'd say everyone deserves a medal for getting out of bed at that time in the morning and, you know what I mean? Definitely fantastic. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would donate a good bit to the lifeboat, I can tell you.
Nearly a year later, Andy's ribs have now healed, and he's planning his next trip.
Oh, I'll be sailing this year again. It's no frightened to me or anything like that, you know. But I'll not anchor there again. That's one thing I'll not do, but I'll still get fishing and that. But there'll come a time I'll just need to say, well, that's it, fair enough.
Despite their near-death experience off the Goodwin Sands, Ian and Steve's passion for diving remains undiminished.
The risk hasn't put me off diving, no. I can't wait to get back out. You've got to get back on the horse.
Hasn't put me off diving one iota. My wife, on the other hand, is very much of a different opinion. Although she says I'm not allowed to go diving again, I will be.
Once the engine of their boat is fixed, they intend to pick up exactly where they left off.
We'll probably do the Queen again and all the local wrecks that we do. I've got 2.5 years to go before I'm 80, so I intend to get there and do a dive, probably crack a bottle of champagne when I've done it.
And in Dungeness, just over a year after armed police stormed the lifeboat station, the man they arrested was sentenced for his crimes.
Suleiman Altaf tried to flee the UK in a dinghy after murdering his ex-partner's son. He's been jailed for life with a minimum term of 30 years. He was found in the English Channel a day after he stabbed 15-year-old Yaqub Shamaiki in Manchester. He'd also tried to kill the boy's mother, stabbing her 13 times.
When you found out what he'd done, I felt a bit silly for being quite so kind to him, but in hindsight, you know, the way we treated him is probably why he kept so calm.
We all feel sad at station for the victim and also the family and the lady that was involved in the incident. You don't come across these things every day. We're not in that kind of line of work, you know, with the police dealing with sort of criminals all the time. And so, yeah, it hit home when we realised the severity of it. But we feel proud that we have been able to get justice for the victim and their families.
This shout particularly does highlight the fact that you never know what that next shout is going to be when the pager goes.
Okay guys, go, go, go.
Your body's full of adrenaline, especially when you come to the situation that we were in.
Brace, lift, move. Okay, it's going to start coming in.
I remember looking at it and thinking, we've got one chance and one chance only.
My only thought was, well, that's it. And then everything went black.
One person in the water.
If it's late at night, driven by drugs or alcohol, we want to be able to get to them before there's a bad ending.